The city that never sleeps was, for a rare moment, quiet. Eliza Thorne lay in the king-sized bed of her Tribeca penthouse, the soft glow of the Manhattan skyline painting muted stripes across the silk duvet. Beside her, Alexander Thorne, her husband of nearly 25 years, breathed the deep, even breaths of sleep. Or so she thought. Then came the whisper. It was 3:17 a.m., a time reserved for regrets and secrets. Eliza stirred, not fully awake, but pulled from the edge of a dream by a sound that didn't belong. A hushed, urgent murmur, seeping through the crack under their bedroom door like a cold draft. Alexander's voice, but stripped of its usual confident timbre, replaced by a tense, pleading quality she hadn't heard in years. No, it has to be at the party. That's the whole point. In front of everyone. A long pause. Eliza held her breath, every sense straining. The floor in the hall was cold marble. She could almost feel the chill radiating from where he must be pacing. Of course she's clueless. She's buried in spreadsheets and orchid fertilizer. She doesn't see anything she doesn't want to see. Another pause. The tinny, distant response of a voice on speakerphone. His mother, Victoria. Eliza knew that cadence anywhere. Clipped, precise, utterly sure. The papers will be ready, Alexander, Hayes assures me. The key is the moment, the public moment. It leaves no room for negotiation, only capitulation. She'll be too mortified to fight. And the condo? Alexander's whisper was sharp, greedy. Hayes is looking into the title history. There might be a creative interpretation, but regardless, pressure will do the trick. Emotional pressure is a more powerful lever than any legal clause. Eliza's heart, a moment ago a sluggish drum in her chest, began to pound a frantic, fearful rhythm. The party, the papers, the condo. The words swirled in the dark, forming a terrifying constellation. Their 25th anniversary gala, the one Alexander had suddenly, passionately insisted on planning at the lavish waterfront Grand, was not a celebration. It was a stage, and she was the unwitting star of a tragedy he was directing. The soft pad of bare feet on marble, the door handle turned with excruciating slowness. Eliza closed her eyes, forcing her muscles to go limp, her breathing to deepen into the slow, rhythmic pattern of sleep. Alexander slid into bed, his body a rigid line of tension beside her. He didn't reach for her, didn't sigh in contentment. He just lay there, crackling with a nervous energy that filled the spacious room. For over an hour, Eliza stared into the darkness behind her eyelids, the whispers echoing, while the man she'd shared a life with for a quarter-century plotted her end beside her. The morning sun did nothing to dispel the night's chill. Alexander, however, was a man transformed. Gone was the tense conspirator of the early hours. In his place was the charming, attentive husband from a bygone era. "Eliza, my love," he chimed, already dressed in a bespoke charcoal suit, his silver hair perfect. He bent and planted a kiss on her cheek that felt more like a brand than a caress. The scent of his exclusive Creed cologne, a gift she'd bought him last Christmas, was overwhelming. Silver anniversary girl. The endearment, once sweet, now tasted like ash. For 25 years, Eliza had been the architect of their social life, the dinner parties, the holidays, the quiet family gatherings. Alexander's involvement had been limited to critique. The wine was too bold, the guests were too dull, the music was forgettable. This sudden, fervent investment in a massive public spectacle was a glaring, screaming red flag. "It sounds extravagant, Alexander. The Pearl Ballroom for 200 people?" She kept her voice light, studying his face in the reflection of the polished espresso machine. "Only the best," he repeated, a rehearsed line. "This is a milestone. I want the world to see how proud I am. How proud I've always been." He didn't meet her eyes in the reflection. He was checking his watch. "I have an early meeting. We'll connect later." He swept out, a whirlwind of false purpose. Left in the serene, sun-drenched silence of her kitchen, Eliza felt the first true tremor of fear. As she cleared his coffee cup, she saw it. His phone, left face down on the quartz countertop. It lit up with a notification. Call S. S? Samuel, the San Francisco consultant? Perhaps, but intuition, that quiet voice honed over decades of partnership, screamed otherwise. Later that afternoon, as she meticulously watered her collection of rare Phalaenopsis orchids, her only truly selfish indulgence, she broached it. "Alexander, who is S? You have a reminder to call them at 11. He froze in the doorway of his study, a file folder in hand. The reaction was instantaneous, a full-body flinch followed by a wave of forced relaxation so visible it was painful to watch. "Samuel," he said, too quickly, "the tax consultant, nasty bit of multi-state filing for the new subsidiary, dreadfully boring." He was lying. She knew the tells, the microscopic twitch under her right eye, the way his thumb rubbed against his forefinger. He'd lied about a surprise party once, decades ago, and displayed the same signs. Back then, it was endearing. Now, it was a dagger. "Of course," she murmured, turning a leaf to inspect for blemishes. The seed of doubt, planted by the 3 a.m. whisper, had now broken ground, sending out creeping, poisonous vines. The visit from Victoria Thorne 2 days later was the fertilizer those vines needed. Victoria didn't visit. She held court. She arrived unannounced, a vision in ice-blue Chanel, her perfume a cloud of jasmine and superiority. "Eliza, darling," she said, air-kissing the space beside Eliza's cheek. "You look rested." Her eyes, the same pale blue as Alexander's, but infinitely colder, swept the living room, cataloging the art, the furniture, the breathtaking floor-to-ceiling view of the Hudson. It was an appraisal, not an appreciation. They sat for tea, a stilted ritual. Victoria made pointed small talk about the party, emphasizing the importance of the right crowd and the impression it will make on Alexander's partners. Then she set down her bone china cup with a precise click. "I've been thinking of the future, dear. Alexander isn't a young man, and with no children." She let the implication hang, a familiar, painful weight. "One must be practical about assets. Have you and Alexander done any estate planning? A will, perhaps, for any future beneficiaries?" Eliza's spine straightened. "We have basic documents, Victoria, but as we have no heirs, it's largely academic." "Oh, but family is more than direct lineage." Victoria waved a dismissive hand, her diamonds catching the light. "There are Alexander's cousins' boys, promising young men. One feels a duty." "Speaking of assets," she leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial tone that made Eliza's skin crawl. "Where do you keep the deed to this magnificent apartment? For security purposes, of course. One hears such terrible things about identity theft." The question, so casually venomous, was the final piece. The late-night plotting, Alexander's lies about S, the lawyer Hayes, and now Victoria's blatant probing about her home. They weren't just planning a divorce. They were planning an annexation. They intended to shame her publicly and then legally strip her of the life she'd built. The moment Victoria left, Eliza moved. Fear was now a secondary emotion, overtaken by a cold, clear-headed fury. She went to Alexander's study. His computer, a sleek, monolithic thing, was password-protected. For 25 years, it had been the date they met, 061598. She typed it. Incorrect. Her heart thumped. She tried his birthday. Incorrect. Their wedding date. Incorrect. A memory surfaced. bittersweet and sharp. Alexander, early in their marriage, teasing her for being too predictable. The best passwords are reversals, Eliza. It's simple misdirection. Hands trembling, she typed their wedding date in reverse, 891061. The screen unlocked. The browser history was a confession in search queries. NY equitable distribution loopholes, proving non-financial contribution to separate property, how to force a quick settlement, divorce attorney Hayes reviews. Line after line, a clinical dissection of their marriage. Then, a saved link, a real estate listing for a lavish modern condo in Soho, a bachelor pad if she'd ever seen one. The phone rang, shattering the heavy silence. It was Margot, her college roommate and moral compass. "Eliza, I need you to sit down." Margot's voice was taut. "I was at Tiffany's today, getting my watch serviced, and I saw him. Alexander. He was at the ring counter with a woman, young, blonde, impeccably dressed, in a coat that probably cost more than my car. She was hanging on his arm, laughing at something he said. They were looking at solitaires." Eliza's vision tunneled. What did she look like? Her own voice sounded distant. Pretty, in a very sharp, very curated way. But her eyes, Eliza, they were calculating. She'd look at a ring, then look at him, like she was pricing him too. "I'm so sorry." That evening, Alexander came home bearing gifts, a massive bouquet of white roses and a box of La Maison du Chocolat. "For the most patient woman in New York," he declared, kissing her with a passion that felt like desecration. Later, as he snored softly beside her, Eliza replayed the day. The whispers, the lies, the lawyer, the mistress, the Soho apartment listing. It was a full-blown conspiracy, with Alexander as its weak, vain center, Victoria as its ruthless strategist, and a mysterious blonde as its prize. But they had made one fatal mistake. They had underestimated the woman they thought they knew. 3 days after Victoria's visit, a thick, official-looking envelope arrived from Berlin, bearing the crest of a notary public. Eliza's last living link to her father's side, her great-aunt Greta, a formidable and reclusive woman she'd met only a handful of times, had passed away. With no children or spouse, she had left her entire estate to her clever niece in America. The contents made Eliza's breath catch: a fully owned Alpenblick villa in the outskirts of Munich, a sunny, spacious beachfront condo in Naples, Florida, and several bank accounts, the total conservatively valued at over $3 million. It was not just money, it was a parachute, a lifeboat, a brand new life delivered by fate at the exact moment her old one was being sabotaged. She told no one. This was her sanctuary, her secret fortress. But a fortress needed more than walls. It needed unassailable legal ground. She made an appointment with Mr. Henderson, the kindly, old-school real estate attorney who had handled her parents' purchase of the Tribeca penthouse as a graduation gift for her, years before she'd even met Alexander. "Eliza Sterling," he boomed, using her maiden name. "My goodness, time is a thief. Sit. How is that husband of yours?" "That's actually what I need to discuss, Mr. Henderson, in the strictest confidence." She laid out the situation in calm, precise terms, omitting only the Berlin inheritance. Mr. Henderson's joviality evaporated, replaced by professional intensity. He pulled a dusty file from a vast cabinet. "Ah, yes, the Morningside Drive property. I remember this very well." He traced a line on the old document with a bony finger. "Your parents were very clear. The gift was to you, Eliza Sterling. The funds came from their account to the seller. The deed was recorded in your name alone." He flipped a page. "Here, Alexander Torn was added via a quit-claim deed 2 months after the wedding, for estate planning purposes, it says. But the foundational title, the root of ownership, is yours. In the eyes of New York law, this is your separate property." His claim would be extraordinarily weak unless he invested substantial, documented capital directly into the property itself. Eliza almost wept with relief. Alexander, who viewed home maintenance as beneath him, had never spent a dime beyond writing checks from their joint account for the monthly fees. "It will be on your desk tomorrow, my dear," he said, his eyes full of paternal sympathy. "And if you need a bulldog of a divorce lawyer, my daughter is one of the best in the city. Just say the word." Armed with the deed confirmation and the knowledge of her inheritance, Eliza transformed. The fear melted away, replaced by a steely resolve. She opened a new private bank account. She consulted with Mr. Henderson's daughter, the formidable Sophia Rossi, who advised her on quietly securing her financial position. She began to methodically document everything: call logs, screenshots of the browser history taken with her phone, the Soho listing. She played her part perfectly, the dutiful, oblivious wife. She listened to Alexander's endless party plans, nodded at his lies about late client dinners, and even accepted a gift from Victoria, a business card for Hayes and Associates, with complimentary consultation scribbled on the back. The audacity was breathtaking. The night before the anniversary, she found the crumpled card for Hayes in Alexander's suit pocket. As she smoothed it out, she heard him in his study rehearsing. "A quarter century is a lifetime, and sometimes we outgrow a lifetime. I need to be true to myself, to my own happiness, even if it means causing short-term pain." Eliza went to her own safe, not the one in the study they supposedly shared. From it, she retrieved 3 documents: Mr. Henderson's certified title letter, the summary of Aunt Greta's bequest, and a fresh bank statement for her new account. She placed them in a slender leather portfolio. This was her counter-speech. This was her truth.
The Pearl Ballroom at the Waterfront Grand was a cathedral of opulence. Crystal chandeliers the size of small cars dripped light onto round tables, swathed in silver silk. 200 of New York's right people mingled, their laughter and chatter bouncing off the marble floors. To Eliza, it felt like being in the belly of a beautiful, gilded beast. Alexander was in his element, glowing with a nervous, triumphant energy. He introduced Eliza to people she'd known for years with a proprietorial air. "My beautiful wife, the anchor of my life for 25 years, he'd say, the hypocrisy so thick she could taste it. And then she saw her. Across the room, near a colossal ice sculpture, was the woman from Margot's description. She was even more striking in person, wearing a dangerously red dress that spoke of ambition, not love. Alexander caught Eliza's eye and, without missing a beat, steered her over. "Eliza, darling, this is Sophia Vance, our brilliant new junior partner at the firm. Sophia, my wife, Eliza." "A pleasure," Sophia said, extending a perfectly manicured hand. Her smile didn't reach her pale, assessing eyes. "Alexander speaks of you so often." "I bet he does," Eliza thought, returning the smile with one of her own, perfected over years of charity galas. "How lovely! Welcome to the family. Firm." As Alexander was pulled away by his boss, Mr. Harrington, Sophia's mask slipped for a second. Her gaze swept over Eliza's elegant but understated mauve gown, a flicker of disdain in her eyes before she turned to watch Alexander, a predator eyeing her prize. Victoria Thorne held court at a central table, receiving compliments on her son. Her eyes met Eliza's across the room, and she offered a small, cold smile, the smile of a chess player who believes she's already won. At a secluded corner table, a man in a somber suit sipped water, Mr. Hayes. He wasn't here for the champagne. Chapter 6: The Unveiling. Dinner was served, toasts were made. The CEO of Alexander's firm praised his integrity and dedication. An old friend told an embarrassing, fond story from their college days. Through it all, Eliza sat, a serene statue, her portfolio resting against her leg under the table. Then the master of ceremonies tapped the mic. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for, the man of the hour, to say a few words about the love of his life, Alexander Thorne. Alexander stood to thunderous applause. He adjusted his cufflinks, a gesture of vanity Eliza knew well, and took the microphone. His face was a masterpiece of conflicted emotion, sadness, resolve, feigned regret. Friends, family, colleagues, thank you. 25 years. It sounds like a lifetime, and in many ways it has been. He looked at Eliza, his eyes glistening under the lights. For the cameras, he realized, for the narrative. Eliza, you have been my constant, my companion through every triumph and challenge. He paused, letting the ahs ripple through the crowd. Then his voice hardened just a fraction. But a lifetime is also a long time to live a lie, a long time to silence your own needs, your own truth for too long. He turned fully to face Eliza, his expression now one of pained benevolence. Eliza, I am so sorry, but our marriage is over. I am filing for divorce. I need to find my own happiness with someone whose ambitions and vitality match my own, and I will be needing you to vacate the penthouse. It's time for me to build a new life there. The gasp from the audience was collective, a wave of shock. All eyes swiveled to Eliza. They expected tears, collapse, a scene.
Victoria's smile was now a grimace of triumph. Sophia Vance leaned forward, her red lips parted in anticipation. Mr. Hayes subtly patted the breast pocket of his jacket, where the papers undoubtedly waited. Alexander, misreading the stunned silence as victory, pressed on. I know this is painful, but it's for the best. We can do this amicably, with dignity. Slowly, deliberately, Eliza pushed back her chair. The sound echoed in the hushed ballroom. She stood, smoothing her dress. She did not cry. She did not tremble. She walked to Alexander, her heels clicking a steady rhythm on the marble. Gently, but firmly, she took the microphone from his slack hand. She turned to the sea of horrified, fascinated faces. Thank you, Alexander, for that remarkable performance, and for making this so public. It saves me the trouble of having to explain myself to everyone individually. She let her gaze sweep the room, landing on Victoria, on Sophia, on Hayes. You see, for the last 3 weeks, I've been privy to a fascinating little drama. The 3 a.m. strategy sessions with your mother. Victoria's face went white. The lies about consultants, when you were really with your junior partner. Sophia shrank back in her chair. The legal research on how to strip me of my home. The cozy meetings with Mr. Hayes over there, who isn't here for the cake. Hayes looked for the nearest exit, but the crowd was too dense. You planned this as a public execution, Alexander. You thought humiliation would be my shackles, but you got your facts tragically wrong. She opened the leather portfolio. First, the Tribeca penthouse. She held up Mr. Henderson's letter. A certified legal opinion. The property was a gift to me, Eliza Sterling, from my parents, recorded in my name 6 months before we even married. Your name was added later as a courtesy. It is and always has been my separate property under New York law. You have no claim, not a single brick. Alexander's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. The arrogant veneer shattered, revealing the petulant, entitled child beneath. Second, Eliza continued, her voice clear and resonant, you spoke of my lack of vitality and ambition. Perhaps managing your life and your social climbing wasn't ambition enough. My own ambition led me to a successful career I put on hold to support yours. And it seems my family had more faith in me than you did. She held up the inheritance summary. My great-aunt Greta recently passed. She left me her entire estate, a home in Munich, a condo in Florida, and rather more money than you've spent on this elaborate farewell party for yourself, which, by the way, cost $45,000 from our joint savings. The crowd erupted in angry mutters. Alexander's boss, Mr. Harrington, stood up, his face like thunder. "So, Alexander," Eliza concluded, turning back to her husband, who seemed to have shrunk in his tuxedo, "you are free. Free to pursue your happiness with someone whose vitality you can afford. You will get exactly what the law entitles you to: half of our modest weekend cabin in the Catskills and half the value of your car. That is the equitable distribution you so meticulously researched. The penthouse, my inheritance, and my future are mine alone." She placed the microphone back on the podium with a soft thud. The sound was final. She picked up her portfolio, gave one last cool look at the tableau of ruin she'd created: the ashen-faced mother, the horrified mistress, the fleeing lawyer, and the utterly broken man who was once her husband, and walked out of the ballroom. The roar of scandalized conversation erupted behind her, but Eliza didn't hear it. She walked through the grand lobby, out into the cool New York night, and took a deep, shuddering breath of free air. Epilogue: The Quiet Dawn. In the months that followed, the fallout was swift and merciless. The video of the waterfront grand ambush went viral. Alexander was asked to resign from his firm. His name became synonymous with betrayal in their social circle. He and Victoria, having lost the penthouse battle and saddled with debts from his failed scheme, were forced to sell her apartment and move to a modest rental in New Jersey. Sophia Vance, the junior partner, was quietly let go. She was last seen on the arm of a much older hedge fund manager, her ambitions intact, if redirected. Eliza, true to her word, filed for divorce. With Sophia Rossi as her lawyer, it was a short, brutal proceeding. Alexander, his resources and reputation in tatters, could mount no defense. The judge upheld the separation of the penthouse and awarded him only the minimal assets Eliza had outlined that night. Eliza didn't stay in New York to watch his descent. She moved to the sun-drenched, airy condo in Naples, Florida. The silence there was not the tense silence of a dying marriage, but a peaceful humming quiet filled with the sound of waves and her own thoughts. She sold the Munich villa and used a portion of the funds, combined with her savings, to fulfill a dream long deferred. She opened Sterling Editions, a small boutique publishing house specializing in translating overlooked works of European literature. It was not about profit, it was about passion, about beauty, about building something that was entirely and authentically her own. One evening, a friend visiting from New York asked, "Do you ever feel a twinge of regret or a desire for revenge?" Eliza watched a pelican dive gracefully into the shimmering pink water. "No," she said, and meant it. "Regret is for choices you can change. I don't regret the good years we had before he lost himself. And revenge?" She smiled, a genuine, peaceful smile. "Living well, truly well and freely, isn't revenge. It's redemption. He gave me the key to my cage that night. I simply chose to walk out and to never look back." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in strokes of gold and lavender. In the distance, lights began to twinkle on. Eliza Thorne, once a woman defined by a marriage, now defined only by her own quiet strength and hard-won peace. She sipped her tea and breathed in the boundless possibility of her new life. The long, dark night was over. Her dawn, at last, had come.
To you, listening from somewhere across the world, thank you for drifting through this story with me. I hope it carried you to a place of calm. Wherever you are, whatever you're facing, remember that even in the deepest night, a new chapter is always waiting to be written. If this story brought you peace, consider supporting the channel with a super thanks. It helps create more of these long-form escapes for you. Subscribe for more journeys into the heart of life's storms and the quiet that follows. Check the links for other extended sleep stories perfect for a restful night. With gratitude and warmth, your storyteller.